Welcome to the special Saturday edition of the Tough Decisions podcast called Step Up Your Game with Dan. Each Saturday, Dan will be discussing topics related to making better decisions in business to increase your productivity and sales. And now, your host, Dan Hanford.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of our Tough Decisions podcast. This is the Step Up Your Game with Dan episode. And today we're going to be talking about a very famous person by the name of Sir Richard Branson. For those of you who don't know, he is an English business magnate. He's an investor and a philanthropist. He founded a company called the Virgin Group, which now controls over 400 companies. According to Forbes, he has an estimated net worth of over $5.1 billion. That's billion with a B as in Bravo. He's been in business now for over 50 years. And so there's a lot of different tough decisions that Richard Branson has had to make throughout his entrepreneurial career and entrepreneurial journey, as you will. So I wanted to dive today in this episode to help you understand how he makes better decisions and how he makes these tough decisions. And so in a recent blog article that he wrote in Gulf News, he covered a few strategies. He covered 3 of them specifically that he uses to make these tough decisions. And so the first one that he goes over is the first question that he asks himself, is this the right move for his enterprise or company? This is the type of question you have to ask when you're making really big changes in the company. Are you changing the product offering of your company? Are you going from, trying to sell apples to oranges? You got to ask those kind of questions. Is it right for your actual company? And one of the things that he did is he originally had taken his company, Virgin, to a public company. So it was actually a public company at one point. And then he realized that once he went public, that he lost a lot of control of his company. He lost a lot of decision-making power. He lost a lot of freedom and a lot of the joy that he really liked in having his own company. And so he made the tough decision to take on a lot of new debt in this new company and take on a burden on the company. And what he did is he took on new debt to buy out his investors and go from a public company back to a private company. He wanted to have that new control. He talks about there being like a lot of stress and a lot of angst around that time of doing that, but he knew that was the right decision. He knew that was the right move for his company and his enterprise. And so one of the things that he did later on is he was able to find a partner in Japan to help ease some of the strain from this new debt. And it also, with that new partnership, allowed him to grow his company globally. And so one of the other things that I see with this is that global expansion is something that entrepreneurs sometimes don't think about. And I'm guilty of this myself. Sometimes we think of just our small local area or our small country that we're in, and this world is there for us to be able to help many, many people. And businesses are there because we're here to solve a problem, improve a service, or just simplify how we do things in life. And a lot of times we think that only the people in our area can we solve that problem for. But a lot of times these are global issues. These are global problems that you can solve on a much larger scale and a much larger basis. And there are resources out there. There are people out there that can help you grow globally. And just like Sir Richard Branson did in finding this partner in Japan to help him, take off some of the debt into his company, but it also allowed him to be able to think more globally and allow him to grow his enterprise into a more global enterprise and company. And so I want you to think about your business right now and how you can grow your business more globally and not think about how small you want to keep it. There are ways to grow your company into a larger enterprise. And so I want you to be thinking about that as we go throughout this is how can you start thinking bigger and not always just smaller with your business? One of the examples that I have is from my own life is about, the question of, is this the right move for your company? I had a decision that I had to make when I had my practice. I still had the practices. I have 5 medical offices here in South Carolina that are spaced throughout and South Carolina. And about in January of 2017, I had to make a decision as to whether or not I was going to continue doing a particular service in my office. So as most of you know, if you've listened to our backstory episode, which is episode 0, and if you haven't listened to it, I would encourage you to go listen to Danae and I going through our story on how we got to where we are today as entrepreneurs and why we created this podcast. But as most of you know, I'm a chiropractor, but I have 5 medical offices that do only medical services in our offices. And so originally we had been doing chiropractic in those offices. And we had done it for, I think 5 or 6 years when we first started the company. And that's what it started out as, is it originally was a chiropractic only practice. And then we started to change some of the product offerings and some of the services that we were doing. And we were bringing on medical services at the same time as doing chiropractic in the office. And then as we continued to go down this path of product offerings, we found that what we were doing on the medical side was filling a gap and filling a hole in the market that really needed us and really needed our services. But in order for us to grow that part of the practice, we had to take out the chiropractic. And it wasn't because I didn't like chiropractic. It wasn't because I didn't want to do chiropractic anymore. It was because I knew that in order to grow the practice exponentially from where we were at that time, which was just one practice, or actually at that time I had 2 practices, in order for me to be able to scale it the way I wanted to, I had to do something differently. And so I had to sit down and figure out what was it that I could take out, or what was it that I could do to expand this business. And so taking out the chiropractic allowed us to be able to build networks and referral networks with outside companies and outside businesses like chiropractors. Because as most of you know, in the medical field, referrals go back and forth all the time, and there's no issues with that. But in chiropractic, we're afraid of referring a patient to another chiropractor because we're afraid that chiropractor is going to steal, if you will, our patients. And so we try to get into this mindset of, no, we can't refer them out to another chiropractor. So that was one of the main reasons why I cut out chiropractic, is because we do a lot of what's called regenerative medicine in our practice, non-surgical orthopedic medicine. And so a lot of people who have a lot of knee pain and arthritis in their back and their neck and their shoulders and, the ankles and elbows and wrists, carpal tunnel syndrome, all that kind of stuff. We do a lot of regenerative medicine, a lot of outside of the box thinking. And a lot of those services are cash services where people are paying cash out of their pocket and it's not covered by their insurance. But chiropractors see a lot of those patients that are already doing alternative medicine and they're already paying cash for services. And so that was where we could serve the market the most, is using other referrals from chiropractors to, feed the practice with these patients to allow us to serve more people in our area, in our community. And so we actually decided to take out chiropractic, which was a big, big move for us. And it was kind of scary. We didn't know what was going to happen because we already had a number of patients that were already coming to us just for chiropractic. And we had to make that decision. It was very hard to just stop doing chiropractic altogether so we could start to build relationships with outside chiropractors. And what we were able to do is take the chiropractic patients that we were seeing and refer them out to the local chiropractors to create those networks and to build those relationships. And another effect of this was that physical therapy offices started to refer to our practices as well, because they don't usually refer to chiropractors as well. And so we were able to build a big network now of referrals from chiropractors and physical therapy offices. And we have a full-time marketer now that goes out and reaches out to some of these referral networks to kind of continue to cultivate those relationships. And so we had to answer that question of, is this the right move for our practice at that time? And so that's one of the big questions you need to ask yourself when you start to make major changes, like changing a product offering or moving locations or bringing on a partner. There's a lot of different things that you have to think about, and you need to ask yourself that and list those things out and have the right discussions with the right people to make that decision. The second thing that Sir Richard Branson discusses in this blog article is, the question of, asking yourself, do you have the right team in place for this particular opportunity? You have to have a team in place that can sweat the small stuff, he says, right? You need to have a team in place that you can have to focus on the details. And I would say that you're not just focusing on just the details. You need to have somebody that can focus, and a team that can focus on the right details. You, as the business owner, have to be able to delegate these tasks and share the load of these additional tasks with the right people that could be looking at the right details at the right time. And you have to understand which details are the ones for you to look at. Just looking at details doesn't really get us to where we want to go. You want to make sure you have a system in place and a process in place to look at the right details so that you can see when your business starts to take a dive or when you starts to go up and hits that spike and that hockey stick. You want to know what was it that caused that hockey stick spike in your business so you can continue to duplicate that and learn from the successes, but also learn from some of the mistakes that you make, but also looking at the right details in your business so you know when to pivot and to make those changes so that you can continue to proceed through your business and to continue to grow. One of the things that I had to do in my business is at the time that we were cutting out the chiropractic, and at that same time, my wife was working for us as the office manager. And about a year prior to that, before we started to bring on the medical really heavily, I had an office manager in place that was doing a great job. There was nothing wrong with her. She did really well with the staff and the team that we had in place at the time. And I really enjoyed working with this person because she was very, very strong. But the problem was that as the general in this business and as the owner of this business, I didn't feel like she could help us get to the next level. And so sometimes you have to make tough decisions to let people go. And that was one of the things that I had to do at that time is I didn't feel like I had that person. I didn't feel like I had the right team in place at that time to make some of the changes that I wanted to make. And so at that time, I had to make the hard decision to let her go and then also convince my wife to come on as the office manager to help us get to that next level and get over the hurdle of making some of these hard decisions and some of these hard changes. And so that's one of the things you have to ask. Number one is this the right move for your company? And then number two is, do you have the right team in place to make this opportunity that you're getting ready to pursue be successful? And then the third strategy that he shares with us is, does the move you're getting ready to make offer opportunities to be able to create visibility for your brand or your product? And so one of the things that I thought about recently is, recently Starbucks had an incident with an employee where they had a conflict with a customer. And instead of just trying to, kind of get down in this issue and this problem, they took the media coverage that was around this and used it as a way to, one, close all the businesses, all the locations down to do some residual training with their team. But that created an opportunity to create more visibility and more brand awareness. And that didn't cost them a dime. They got a lot of extra brand recognition and brand awareness from that incident. Now, they wouldn't look back and go, man, I wish we could do that incident over again. But they created an incident in their company that could have caused a negative light on their business and their brand and turned it around and made it very positive. So, one of the main reasons why they did that is because that particular issue with Starbucks and that employee and that customer relationship really kind of struck the core beliefs of Starbucks. And so I'd encourage you to look at that incident very closely because, they basically had an employee that took a customer that didn't buy anything in their company and basically told them that the person had to leave because they were in the business and in the Starbucks restaurant and they were not doing anything. They weren't doing anything. They weren't purchasing anything or spending any money. And if you know anything about Starbucks, Starbucks is all about the experience. And they want you to have a great environment and a great experience. And they really don't care. They want you to be able to collaborate in their business. They don't really care if you buy anything. That's not what they want you to do. They want you to have that experience. Now, obviously, it goes on the rule of reciprocity, where if they can give you this space to be able to have meetings and host these conversations and have this great environment that you'll want to spend money with them. But it really struck at their core, which is why they used it as an opportunity to be able to promote their brand even more and use it as a positive thing and turn it into a positive thing instead of something always negative. And so you have to think about that as well. How can you sometimes turn negative publicity about your brand or your business or your product and turn it into something more positive? One of the things that Branson does, and if you've followed Sir Richard Branson at all, one of the things that he does to promote his business and his brand is that he does a lot of crazy stunts and does a lot of crazy adventures. And so he actually promotes himself through those crazy stunts and adventures. And what's neat about it is that he attributes a lot of his success to this type of brand building. And the nice thing is that this type of brand building where he does these crazy stunts and goes on these crazy adventures, it grabs a lot of headlines across the world, and it costs him nothing to get that brand awareness. And he attributes a lot of his success to that brand building through those crazy stunts and through those adventures. And so today, let's go ahead and go over this real quick. So number one is you have to ask yourself, is this the right move for your company? Number two is do you have the right team in place for this opportunity that you want to pursue? And does this opportunity move you to be able to create more visibility for your product or your brand? Those are the three questions that Richard Branson asks himself and when he makes some of these tough decisions that he has. And so today, I want to challenge you to sit down today and create a system, create a process for you to be able to make tough decisions. You need to understand that as you face these tough decisions and these challenges in your business, whether it be a lack of capital or, seeing that there's other strong competition coming your way, or maybe even in troubled times in your economy where the economy seems to be slowing down, you need to have a process already in place where you can have a system where you can make tough decisions and have that strategy already in place so you know what you're going to do when you are faced with these tough decisions. So are you facing a tough decision right now in your business? Or maybe you're facing a tough decision right now personally. I want to be able to help you with that. So I want you to email me at dan@toughdecisions.net. And I don't care where you are, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, globally. Right now, as of this recording, we have over 29 countries that are listening to our podcast. And I want to encourage you to wherever you are in this world, we will find a way to jump on a call with you. And I want to be able to help you think through and help you make the decisions in your business as you make these tough decisions, just to help you out and give back to you a little bit. And so I want to thank you for listening to this episode of Step Up Your Game with Dan. This is our special Saturday edition of the Tough Decisions podcast. I wish you a very good rest of your day and look forward to talking to you on another episode of this podcast.
Make sure to subscribe to our Tough Decisions podcast channel to listen in on Sunday for our next specialty show to help you make better decisions. It's called Survive and Thrive with Danae. Do you want to nominate a highly successful entrepreneur or real estate investor to be a guest on this show? Email us at dan@toughdecisions.net. Help us spread the word about the Tough Decisions podcast with your friends, and also take time right now to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes, Facebook, or your favorite platform. You've been listening to the Tough Decisions Show.